Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prose Pros podcast, your go-to source for the art, the craft, and the business of publishing. I'm Callie Shamus, an agented writer and a literary intern.
And I'm Lauren Kahn, an author and literary agent. As former attorneys and book lovers, we're pulling back the curtain on an industry known for being opaque.
And today we have a fantastic episode for you. We're joined by author Callie Kazumi to discuss a wide range of topics from navigating the publishing landscape to marketing tips for writers and authenticity in cultural representation. Callie Kazumi is a British-Japanese author of psychological thrillers. Her debut, Claire Darling, released in 2025. Callie is a graduate of Stirling University, where she studied journalism and politics, and realized that she enjoyed shocking headlines and making up twisted plots in her head far more than reporting reality. She wrote her first book after her father gifted her Stephen King's On Writing, which inspired her into action. She works in publishing as a marketer and spends her days selling incredible stories before returning home and trying to write her own. She currently lives in London with her husband and Bichon Frise, Betsy.
Hey, Callie, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here. I wanted to kick this off by asking if you've been ghosted before. Was that the origin story of Claire Darling? Is that how it began?
I haven't. I've been with my husband for like 13 years. But the idea for Claire Darling came, it was when COVID happened, and my husband's got a really boring job. It's like, I don't even really know what it is, but it involves a lot of spreadsheets. Being at home and working from home together for the first time was like, it just gave me this idea that I was like, he actually just could have been doing anything all day long, every day. And I would have just nodded and smiled and been like, spreadsheets. And, sure. And then actually like seeing him and being like, oh, he actually has like a grown-up job. Like he actually is working. I went to bed and my mind just started spiraling. And the idea came to me that was like, oh, imagine if he just said he worked and he didn't, and he did something completely different. And then it was just all a kind of domino effect off that one idea, which I feel like all of my books have always been like, I get one weird question idea that's like, oh, what would happen if that? And then that's always what spirals and creates this kind of larger, weirder idea. So yeah, not ghosted, thankfully.
I love how that idea came to you. And very similarly here, my husband is a data analyst, so all he does are spreadsheets all day.
Yes.
And that is a very realistic question to ask. I truly have no idea what he's doing.
He could honestly be doing anything, speaking to anyone, like just not even working, and I would just not know. I'd have no idea.
Right? My goodness. So tell me about your journey from that first idea, from the question to drafting the book. And was this the book that landed you your agent?
Yeah, so I have always written, and I'm not very like genre focused. Like if I get an idea for a story, I just write it in whatever genre makes sense for that story. When I was at uni, I wrote my first book and it was a fantasy, and I had absolutely no business writing a fantasy. It was awful, like objectively really bad. I still to this day I cannot write fantasy. But it was the first book that I like finished and kind of made me realize that I could write a novel and get to the end, which was something in itself, I guess. And then I did another one after that, which was better, and it was a YA. And I queried that one out. And I got some really nice replies. And I always remember one reply, and the agent said, I really like this, but it is just way too dark. Like the market's just like not ready for this. It's just not like teen appropriate. And when I say it was YA, like in America, I don't think you guys have it, but there was this really big show in the early 2000s called Skins. And it was just like,
Oh, yeah.
I think a really like accurate depiction of what it is like living in like a home county and kind of experimenting in your youth at a young age. And that's kind of what the book was doing. So I get that like the literature world's not ready for that yet, maybe. But then I thought, well, if I am writing stuff that is too dark for children, I'll just pivot to adult. And then, as I said, COVID happened. I had the idea for Claire Darling. I wrote that, pitched that out, and got my agent, which is amazing. And I remember in my meeting with my publishers, they were like, "Oh, what made you want to write a thriller? Like, what thriller writers do you aspire to be like? Blah blah blah." And I was like, I don't really read that many thrillers. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't set out to be a thriller writer. It just happened that way. And then my agent and my publisher that I signed with was super commercial, which was perfect for Claire Darling. I think in America, actually, the package is a little bit more book clubby, but in the UK, it was super, super commercial. And then I had the idea for my second book, Greedy, which is much more dark and much more book clubby. And just honestly, I think a completely different audience to the first one. And the US really took it in their stride. I think probably because they were slightly less commercial. They were just like, yeah, this is great. Like, love this. Like, let's do this. The UK were much more cautious, but they supported me creatively, and it's coming out really soon now. So I think this is, and I've said to my agent, I think this is definitely the direction I want to go down now, where it's much kind of darker, weird girl fiction. Um, I want to step away from the super commercial classic thriller and give people something with a bit more to say, with more kind of political themes,
Mm.
especially.
That transition for you makes sense to me because I even felt like Claire Darling, it was kind of this exploration of like, okay, what would you do? Like if your husband was lying to you or if your fiance and like, or if you're ghosted, like what are those next steps that we never take? Like I was telling Tolly before this call, like I've been ghosted before and like I just let it go. But there is a little part of me that's like, okay, well, what if I kept needling and kept texting them and kept calling them? And then, oh, what if
Please
I showed
don't.
up at their office? I know. Listeners,
They're not
don't
worth it.
do that. Exactly. But you wonder like, well, what happened to them? And it's like it's almost like that crazy girl in you. And I love that the character to talk about Claire Darling again, like I love that she got to be that crazy part of me. And so then I kind of love that you're saying like you're going to explore kind of like this weird girl like fiction genre because there is like a little bit of like a weirdness inside of us and we don't truly dive into and give into and like I love that your fiction is doing that for us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like a huge part of Claire Darling for me as well was exploring the kind of relationship with Claire and her mother and how her kind of traumas in childhood went on to kind of mold the woman that she becomes.
Mhm.
And something that else that I really like doing is I really love to write a character that's not particularly likable. Um, I find Ed and Greedy and Claire really frustrating. Both of them are annoying and have so many kind of faults. And I think that, like you said, those faults are kind of exploitations of little parts of ourselves that we all have. That is just like, I think hopefully most of us are managing to keep them under control. But I do love exploring what happens when you just lose that willpower and you just let your freak side flare.
And well, you mentioned Ed, and I was reading on your Substack how your publisher actually wanted Ed to be female. Could you tell us a little bit about that conversation?
I think that the conversations, it was interesting because I still don't really understand what the kind of main point for all of them was. My agent had said to me very early on that she had a feeling that people were going to want Ed to become a female because it would be easier to position against Claire Darling. Like the similarities, at least there would be that similarity that there's a female main character. And I said, I don't really care about there being similarities. And I don't really care if I lose the audience from the first book and find a new one for the second, because the second one is definitely the direction that I intend to go down. Um, and then when the publishing houses both looked at it and bought it, my UK and my US editor both told my agent that they wanted the character to be female. So when we had our first initial meeting to kind of talk about the manuscript and the first round of edits, I felt like it was like three people all wanting the same thing, and I was just being so difficult about it. And I just kept being like, guys, I'm sorry, but like, and 90%, more than 90%, like 95% of the time, when my editors want me to make a change, I just do it because they're usually right and they know better. And they help me be a better writer. But with this, I was like, I honestly don't think I have the skill to do it for a start. Like, he is so clearly a man in my head, and I can't, even the thought of the domino effect of changing his gender would change so many facets of the story, because a lot of it is about him kind of really struggling to step into his role as a father in
Yeah.
a country abroad where he has no support system. And I just think I could never have done it the other way around. It could not have been a mother. It just would have completely changed. I also think, sorry to any men listening to this, but I just don't think a woman would be that stupid. Like, I don't think she could have worked for Hazeley for that long and not gotten like those female vibes when you walk in a room and you're like, something's real fishy. Like, Ed is just bumbling along and he doesn't know what is going on or what day it is. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, a female would know, definitely. The dynamic between Hazeline and the character would have changed if she was a female. I think Hazeline would be completely different. I loved that it was like set in such a patriarchal country, and you have this woman with all these like sad little men just like scurrying around trying to please her all the time. There was just basically, I ended up writing this huge list of all the reasons why I didn't want to change Ed into a woman, and then ended it by being like, ultimately, I don't think I can change him into a woman without the entire kind of basis of the story changing. And I understand the kind of gender dynamics that they could see being brought in by it being a woman. But I had so many other themes to do with class and race and capitalism happening already that I just didn't feel like we needed the gender. So then they kind of trusted me to go on my merry way, and I did all the other edits. And as part of that kind of compromise, I built Ed's wife up quite a lot more. So we had a contrasting female to Hazeline, which I think worked really well in the end. So everybody was happy in the end. But yeah, for a few months, it was just like back and forth where I was like, I can't make it a woman. Like, I just don't know how to write all that story. Um,
Yeah.
That's
but yeah, I mean,
I agree with that. I agree with the him being dumb. I mean, even just the ad that he just is like, "Yep, all right, like this makes
he
sense."
doesn't question anything, which
No,
I think is a very male trait to have. Like, women are
Yeah.
so inherently curious, and
so
we're just
true.
constantly like, why is that? Why is she being like that? Why is she looking at me like that? Whereas Ed is like, it's
Yeah.
none of my business. I'm just a chef.
In
That
his
is so
costume,
true.
his chef's costume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would love to take a step back and, you mention these back and forth talks with your editors. I'd love to know what the editorial process was like from the beginning, from, you editing it yourself, getting it query ready, up to your edits with your agent and all the way through to your editor. And what did that querying and submission process look like for you?
So I'm a very, very, very quick writer and a very, very, very slow researcher. Um, I like to know exactly, basically, I have to know exactly what's going to happen for the most part. Sometimes things deviate completely, and that's fine. But if I'm sitting down, I need to know what scene I'm going to be writing that day. And if there's a question, it just throws me off. So, like when I was writing Claire Darling, the courtroom scenes, I'd be like, oh, would she say that? And then stopping the writing flow to go and research frustrates me so much. So I try and
Yeah.
read it as much as possible before I even sit down and start. And then what I do is I call it like a skeleton draft, because it's not even a first draft. It's a skeleton draft, and it's basically getting from start to end of the story. So my only goal is to just reach the end and to be able to write the end. And I don't really care about anything else. It's just moving the plot forward and keep going. So when I read back on that, oh yeah, that's my other rule. I never go back and edit until it's done.
Mm.
So, because otherwise I would just tinker forever.
Yeah.
So when I finish that skeleton draft and I go back, it tends to read very like, he said this and they went there and then this happened and then she said this. So then I bulk it all out and I add all of the descriptions and I add all of the showing, not telling. And that is probably the largest edit that I do myself. I'll then tweak it again. So it's like a clean first draft. And then it goes to my agent. And then my agent is extremely hands-on. She loves to really get into the editorial side of things, and she's like just got such a good creative mind. And there's so many times where I've been like, I just don't really know like how to add this level of darkness to this scene, and she always just is like manages to switch on all the best ideas. Um, so it will go to her, and then I will do her edits. And then when that's done, it will go to my editors. And by that point, it is actually usually pretty clean. So I will usually just do one or two more rounds of edits with the editors and then copy line edits, which are my least favorite because copy edits are so pedantic. Like it's just basically really intensive fact checking. Um, and it was so frustrating during Claire Darling, especially because obviously there's a lot of courtroom scenes and it's set in the UK and London. And basically, our legal system's completely different from your guide. And the UK
Yeah.
courts and the courtrooms are so boring, like they are just so dull. And the US is like drama, 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 like Legally Blonde, strutting down the runway, like talking to everyone. Like you sit next to your lawyer at the front, so your lawyer can like whisper to you, and like you can see everyone's reactions in the jury all there, and it's amazing. Um, so when I was writing it, and I said to my, it really annoyed me actually. One review I saw was like, she's obviously done no research on the legal system. And I was like, I did so much research, but I chose purposefully to not do it the UK way because it's so boring. And this is a story for entertainment and we need some drama. So basically, I merged UK and US law practice and courtroom kind of setups for the book. And then the copy edit process was just painful because it was almost every other sentence. She'd be like, this doesn't happen in the UK. And I just had to comment like, yeah, I know, but I don't care. just leave it, please. Which I get it's their jobs to like tell me that something is factually wrong. But my editor was like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, we're just going to ignore it all because as long as it makes sense, the average person is not a legal mastermind and won't know these things. So as long as it's not so unrealistic that it pulls people out of the story, then it's fine. Sorry, this is so long-winded. So that's kind
You're
of
talking to two attorneys, so it's fine. You can talk to us about legal stuff.
my whole career. So that was kind of the writing process, and then querying. I feel like such a dick saying this, but like I found the querying process relatively easy, only because I did so much research. So I had an Excel spreadsheet. I've written on a Substack on how I queried actually, but I had a spreadsheet. I found agents that were open to receiving requests in the commercial thriller space, and then I kind of counted down my top 10 based on who they already represented. I actually worked in publishing already, but I was in the marketing department, so I didn't have any agent contacts or anything. But what I did do is I spoke to the thriller editor and I was like, these are my top 10 agents that I want to query to. What do you think? And there was one that was already like top of my list anyway. And she was just like, she is great. She's such a pit bull when she negotiates. And I was like, yes, that is what I need because I'm so like airy fairy, like, oh, whatever, like, I'll just do it for pizza, like it's fine. So having someone that was like grittier was like, yes, that's what I need. So she kind of helped steer me into like who she knew as an editor's point of view was good and who wasn't. And then I just put all their requirements in my spreadsheet because some people are like, we want 10,000 words double spaced, and then someone else will be like, first 3 chapters single spaced. So I just made sure that I followed everyone's requests and requirements to a T, and then I sent them off. And then, and this is a little bit interesting actually. Basically, I filmed a TikTok video. I hate TikTok. I try not to use it. I don't have any followers really, but I filmed a TikTok. And it was one of those TikToks where you talk about the story as if it's your life.
Yep.
So I was just like, went and left my husband some lunch, and then I got there and he doesn't even work there. Like, what the hell? If you want to know what happens next, this is my book and I'm looking for an agent. I posted that TikTok video on Twitter and it went viral on Twitter. Um, and I just got so many comments from agents being like, send me the manuscript. So I did, and I had 4 offers of representation. And then off the back of that, I emailed the 10 that I had originally queried to. And I was like, I've had some offers. And I said to my agent, Camilla, I was like, I've had an offer, but I really want you, and I'm willing to wait for you to read the manuscript. She only takes one author on a year. So she was like, I don't know
Oh.
if I'm gonna have time. I was like, I'll wait. I don't care. It's fine. And then just luckily I waited, and then she emailed me and she was like, I'm going to be honest, I haven't had time to finish reading the manuscript and I've never done this before, but let's go for a meeting. And she offered me representation without finishing it, which was wild to me. And then I told her about the TikTok and she was like, oh, like, I don't know, I haven't seen it. Like, I don't, she's like, I don't look at those things, like, whatever. But I was getting so many tweets from like, obviously just old men, and they were like, oh, you're just using your looks, and the fact you're female to get your book thing. I bet you can't even write. I was like, go away, stop being so bitter.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the internet's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, sorry that you haven't posted a TikTok.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Seriously.
How long did it take to get on sub after you signed?
She went out straight away,
Mm.
because and it was a really quick turnaround because I signed with her just before Christmas, I think, and then
Uh,
we had the London Book Fair, or was it Frankfurt? We signed like 2 months before this huge book fair. It was
Mhm.
the
mhm.
London Book Fair, and
Yeah.
she was like, "I'm going to take it there, and it's going to be like the London Book Fair book." So basically, every agent gets to take one book that they say is their one
Wow.
push, and she took it there, and then it went to auction. Um, so it was like just crazy. The whole thing was just crazy, and I was like, this is just a silly little COVID book that I wrote and like had a bit of fun with. Like I never, ever, ever expected anything like that to happen. It was so crazy.
Wow.
So
Even thinking
inspiring.
about it now, I'm like, what the hell? That was so crazy. And then I got the call from my agent to tell me that that it had gone to auction, that I got the deal on it was in April and I was in Amsterdam, and they have this thing called King's Day where basically it's kind of like 4th of July in America, but everyone wears orange and gets super drunk, and they basically shut the city down. It's just a whole city party, and everyone goes on these boats. They're like party boats, and I was on a party boat and I was so drunk, and I was like hanging off the side of the boat with like my phone in my hands, like, what? I got a book deal? What? And then I just started crying. And then all these girls thought my husband had proposed. They were like, oh my God, did he just
Oh.
propose? And I was like, no, it's so much better. Like, like a book deal.
Oh my goodness. And so your deal was a 2-book deal. So
Yeah.
did you I know some other authors I've heard will actually look at how their book performs, their debut, and then use that to kind of influence strategy for the second one. But how does that go in a 2-book deal? Did you look at all at your stats?
I haven't looked at any of my sales or any of my reviews. I
Mhm.
get my publicist before publication to send me like the good early reader reviews, and that's it. I just think like it's just such a slippery slope to go down. And I think if you want
Mhm.
to stay creative and fresh, you just have to do what your brain wants you to do rather than what other people want you to do. If I
Yeah.
wanted to write for other people rather than for myself, I would have stayed in copywriting, like, and just worked to a brief, or like IP projects.
Yeah.
Like when people
Mhm.
contact you for an IP, like that's fine. But if I want to do my own novel, then it has to be based on what I want to write and read rather than what I think other people want to based on some sales figures. Um and I've had a lot of people message me like, "Oh, I didn't know if I'd love greedy, but I really do." So it's like people don't really know um how open they are to kind of trying something new until you give them the chance, I think.
Yeah.
Then also, yeah, I just think looking at those kind of things is it's such an easy way to kind of keep comparing yourself to other authors.
Mhm.
And you're looking at like on social media, you're seeing people with billboards and like getting all these awards and literary things. And it's just, you know, I think going down such a granular path can just be so slippery. I'm in a WhatsApp group for debut authors in the UK, and there's like 65 of us in it now that all came out in 25. And people on there, you know, they read a bad review and it really sticks with them and it really affects their confidence. And then
Hmm.
it kind of makes them second guess everything that they're doing. And it's like, no, just don't read any of them. There's no part of me that wants to read my reviews because people are crazy. Like,
Yeah.
people will go on Amazon and be like, 1 star, the box arrived with a dent in it. I'm like, you have no
I
idea
know.
how annoying you are.
I hate those.
I'm like, everyone rates differently, everyone reviews differently. It's so
Hmm.
subjective. Just because one person hated it, it doesn't mean that another person, it's not going to be their favorite book and change their life. So I think reading the bad ones that will stick with you, because that's just how we're hardwired.
Yep.
It's just a risky little game. I want
Yeah.
to have
No,
fun in it.
that's so smart because I could sit here saying like this was one of my favorite books, which it was. Claire Darling was one of my favorite reads of last year, but you would it's true. You would go online and read a bad review and then that's the one that would stick with you. Like that's just the way our
Exactly.
brains work.
Yeah,
It's
because we're always
insane.
kind of second guessing ourselves, and especially writing, it's like, who's qualified to be a writer? No one. It's just imposter syndrome constantly.
Yeah.
I just would rather live in my delusions that just everyone who reads it loves it. No one told me different.
Well, especially, I mean, writing something so new, as you were saying, like Greedy. I mean, I don't even know, are there any books that you could comp Greedy to? Because I know it was comp to The Menu, which I think is perfect. Like, that is the perfect comp. One of my favorite movies. I actually saw it screened early in New York with the cast, and I was like, I'm obsessed with you. I'm obsessed with this movie. And so when I saw it was comp to The Menu, I was like, oh, I'm going to love it. But I don't know, are there any books that are like Greedy?
I don't know. It's an interesting one. I keep comping it to Parasite meets the Menu because I feel like that combination is like
Yeah.
perfect. Um, Books, I haven't been able to find one that I feel comfortable comping it to. There's a lot of incredible books around cannibalism, but they all skew a little bit more literary, and the tone of Greedy is still very pacey and plot focused,
Hmm.
and also quite like funny, like satire, like very dark humor.
Yes,
And that's the
absolutely.
bit that I can't quite find a comp for. I'd love to have one, but I just don't. That's a
Well,
great
you're the
question.
original. Greedy's the original. People will
Yeah,
be comping to Greedy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I
Exactly.
hope
And
so.
I just feel like there's also something about British humor that's just so much more dry and funny than American humor. I'm in Canada, so I guess Canadian humor as well, but
The Brits are so dry and so sarcastic. Like, everything that comes out of our mouths is dry and sarcastic, and anything else is just slapstick humor to us. We're just like, nah, just
I
miserable
love
all the
it.
time.
I love that so much. No, honestly, I just keep thinking of The Menu when I read this book, and I love your descriptions of food too. I'm a big foodie, and so I love when an author can accurately capture descriptions of food, and also in a, like you said, kind of like a dark way. Like food can be very dark, and I think you really captured that beautifully.
Thank you so much. I think one of the things with the food writing, I've said it's like a love letter to Japanese cuisine so many times because it is, and I just love Japanese food. But with some of the disgustinger parts, I think my
Hmm.
goal, that's not a word, disgustinger.
Yeah,
Am I
put it
right?
on the show. We're going with
Disgusting.
it.
yeah, that's okay.
It is now. Um, One of the things that I said to my agent, because she immediately, when I said cannibalism, she was like worried. She was like, that's off-putting to a lot of people. And I was like, I hear what you're saying. But I don't want it, I still want it to be considered like a suspense book. I don't want it to be horror, and I don't want people to like be sick when they're reading it. So something that I like purposefully did was I really glossed over anything to do with the cannibalism in the book, and it was all very undescriptive. And then what I did to contrast that was whenever I was talking about any other kind of meat or like chicken, or when you're in the supermarket and they're all in those cellophane packets and they're just gross and wet, really exaggerated the like horrificness of
Hmm.
those descriptions. And then by the time you get to the cannibalism, because the cannibalism is not a twist, and I don't want it to be a twist. The whole idea is everyone knows, and they're just waiting for Ed to wake up and realize and see what happens when he does. So when it reaches that point, we don't need to describe eating a human or cooking a human or killing a human, because the reader already has all of those disgusting meat images in their mind from when we were
Yeah.
talking about chicken or like a slab of pork or like a crab. So that was the idea with that. But then everything that was not meat based got quite a nice description. Um, so yeah, it was fun. It was interesting. I don't really cook
that.
ever. I don't enjoy it. I love to eat, but I do not cook. So I had to so I watched so many YouTube videos. I was like, how do you cut a crab open? I don't know. I'm allergic to shellfish.
Oh, that's funny. You know what? I actually, since we were talking about comps, maybe not the perfect comp, but now that you describe it in this way, I kind of get the vibes of The Eyes Are the Best Part a little bit. With the dark,
I
there is a
haven't
bit
read
of
that.
humor. You haven't read it? It's very good. I really enjoyed it. It's a very quick read. You can blow through it. I read it, I think, in a day. But
Oh, I love that. It is on my list because I wrote down a whole list of cannibal books, obviously, to read. But I never got
Someone
round to
sees
that
this
one.
list, they're like, I hope
Yeah,
you're a writer.
I know, right? That was just me in the library, like, please don't worry about me.
yeah. Yeah, I think writers get away with a lot of kind of weird Google searches and
Oh, yeah.
strange strange
I think about this
histories.
all the time. You know, when, like, because I'm really into true crime and I'll be listening to podcasts and then
Mhm.
like, oh, and so they arrested her and then they looked at their Google search and it said how to hide a body. I was like, mate, that's child's play.
I
The
know.
stuff I've searched. I
I know.
know.
I want to see your Google history. I know I have some weird stuff in mind, like how do hands look after the person died 3 days ago or something like that. But I want to see yours.
Maybe we should just expose ourselves through our Google search.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm dying. Yeah, mine is bad. It's really bad. So I write thrillers too, so it's just like, what is the best poison for killing someone quietly? Um,
Yeah,
um,
I've definitely searched that as well.
right? Everyone's
Yeah.
everyone's Googled poison at some point.
Oh, yeah, of course. You just need to know these things.
It's true.
It's so true. Well, okay, on the note of like, yeah, inspiration and we're getting books at the library. I have to know about your connection to Stephen King's On Writing because I notice it's so important that it's actually in your bio and that was the book that inspired you to start writing and I what it was it about that book? It's an incredible book, but how was that the start?
So, as I said, I've always written. And then I went to uni and kind of stopped because I was very busy studying and getting drunk every day. And then my parents are not like, they're definitely not sporadic gift givers. We're not the kind of family that like ever show affection or like, we're definitely not, oh, I just picked this up thinking of you kind of family. Um, and my dad got me this book, which was very, very weird for him. And he'd handwritten inside it, like, I don't know why, but I thought that this would be interesting for you. And he like dated it and everything. It felt very formal. Um, so I read it and I just loved it. And I hadn't read, had I? I don't think I had really read Stephen King before that. I think I'd maybe read Carrie or one of the big ones, but I wasn't like a Stephen King fangirl. And I read that book and he is so, the way he writes is just amazing. Like, he's so candid and refreshing, and you can tell his voice almost immediately. Like, I was saying to my husband, it's like when you hear someone singing and you just know it's Christina Aguilera straight away because it's such a distinctive tone. I feel like that with Stephen King. And it was after he sent me that I wrote that first one, The Awful Fantasy. Because he made me want to write. Like, reading that book, every time I closed it, I was like, oh my God, I want to write now. Like, that makes me feel excited to write. And and then yeah, my dad passed away unexpectedly in 2021. And since then, it's been really sad because my book obviously came out after that. And I feel like my dad was like my biggest cheerleader for writing. Like, he loved to read. It's something that we both like always had as like our thing together, was that we'd read together and I'd always send him my writing. And he was just so supportive. And I think he would have shat his pants if he knew that Penguin had signed me. He would have literally like been more excited than I was.
Oh,
Um, So I think having that kind of nod to him in my author bio and printed in the books and stuff is really nice, because if he hadn't gifted me that book, I wouldn't have, well, I probably would at some point, but I definitely wouldn't have done it by now. Or started when I did. And kind of it just reignited the love that I have. And also I just love Stephen King now as well. Like, I just love all of his books. My US publisher said they sent him a final copy of Greedy, so I'm like, fingers and toes crossed that he reads it. Even if he said it was shit, like even if he took the time out of his day to be like, "Hey, Callie, that was shit," I'd be like, "Oh my God, Stephen King knows that I exist." Thank you so much, Stephen.
That would be awesome. He is a
So if he's
fantastic
listening to
writer.
this,
Well, if Stephen King is listening to our podcast, I think we made it.
Wow, then we're done. Our job here is done. It's the case.
we're gonna make it happen.
Oh, fingers
Putting it out
crossed.
there.
I
But
know.
I'm so sorry to hear about your father. But I'm sure, yeah, like you're right. Like you're doing exactly what he would have wanted. So
He'd be
that's
buzzing,
that's great.
honestly, so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. So, what does your writing routine look like? Because we just had another author on last week, and she had mentioned that she starts the day by reading and she kind of draws inspiration from her favorite writers. So, I was going to ask you what your favorite books are for inspiration, but I also want to ask about your writing routine. So, I'll ask about both.
My writing routine's like super, it fluctuates a lot. I think when I'm kind of researching and stuff, I try not to like make everything feel too much of a chore, because then I feel like you can tell when you're reading something that I haven't enjoyed writing it. But when I'm doing a first draft, I tend to be quite strict with like, I will write every single day at least one chapter, because if I don't, then I won't get to the end. This is that skeleton draft that I spoke about earlier. I need to keep the momentum going so I don't kind of lose track of where I am. Um, so I do write every day during that drafting process. And then like I am definitely an evening writer. Before midday, I can't really, my brain's just not really functioning. So I tend to write in the evenings. And then once the first draft's done and it's editing, to me, I think because I used to work in marketing and in copywriting, editing to me seems like just a work thing. Like my work hat is on, so I can just do that all day long
Mm,
and be like, oh, thank God the day's over. That was awful. I hate editing. But yeah, I think that's probably as far as my routine goes. I try not to be too strict with myself. I don't really work set days. Like, because I'm a freelancer, I work from home pretty much all the time. So if I'm working on a Saturday and a Sunday, like that's fine. I'll chill out on Monday evening instead, kind of thing. Like I'm very fluid
mm,
with my timings. And then as far as like what I read to inspire me, I've got a couple of authors that are like constant automatic pickups. Donna Tartt, Stephen King, Sayaka Murata are the top three that come to mind. But it depends what I'm writing. Um, I'll try, like I was saying, I had that cannibal book list for Greedy. I'll read any genre really, to kind of help inspire the topic and look at things from a different point of view. But I also try, because I don't want to ever make reading feel like a chore. And I also don't want other authors' voices to bleed into mine too much, which I think can happen if you're reading something too close to what you're writing. I actually tend to watch film a lot to
Mm.
inspire me, more than I would say I read to inspire me. So like I'd rather take inspiration from watching Hannibal than by reading someone else's book about
mm,
cannibalism, if that makes sense.
Definitely
So
makes
yeah.
sense. And I watch a lot of movies as well, and I always feel inspired after them. And I'm glad you feel the same, because sometimes I'm like, is it bad I'm not reading or writing? I'm watching a movie, but it's creative inspiration. Like it's, screenwriting, it's film creation. So it's still
It
absolutely
to-
creative.
and my
yeah,
brain is always just like, how could I replicate that on page? Like, how can I get
Hmm.
this
exactly.
mood across that they're doing with music and lighting
Yep.
without any of
Oh,
that stuff? I
completely.
think films, I actually watch a lot of anime. I think anime is like
Mm.
got the most
Mm,
interesting character backstories, and their
yeah.
villains are amazing, and the way they play with story structure and stuff is just so cool.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's just a lot more kind of creative licensing with TV and film
Yeah.
at the minute, especially international
Uh,
stuff.
Yeah, and I think
totally.
also you get the imagery, which I mean, books,
Mhm.
of course, have to describe the setting in a compelling way. But when you're actually seeing it, seeing the colors, like I'm writing a book right now where kind of mushrooms and fungus are very prominent. And so I've just been seeking out, it doesn't matter any type of content that shows that. I just want to see that imagery. I watched a movie just the other week called Gaia, and it's all about that. It's all about mushrooms and fungus and whatnot. But the imagery was so beautiful that it was just incredible for inspiration. So, yeah.
That's such a cool topic. You could get so many of those like beautiful vintage illustration books about nature and things like that.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a fantastic idea.
I
And
love that.
actually, speaking of kind of anime and the Japanese inspiration, did you go back into that culture and look at maybe some of their vintage work and artwork and different types of media?
For greedy, I went twice in 2 years and did a lot of eating, which I consider research,
Oh,
honestly.
it is.
Um, we did a lot. I did a lot of different types of eating. Just tried as much as we could. It's just good to kind of be able to experience things from a first-hand point of view, I think.
Mhm.
And I'm half Japanese, so it's nice to kind of be there and try and connect with that side of myself as well. I don't know if so much imagery. I think there's a very like distinct feel to being in Japan, whether you're in a city or in the rural areas, that I think would be very difficult to get across on paper if you haven't experienced it. Um, and there's so many small nuances as well that you wouldn't really know without going there. Um, that people who have, like, you can read about it and be like, oh my God, yeah, that did happen when I was there, or I remember that. But also, if you
Mm.
haven't been, you can read it and not really notice, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, just things like, the train stations, they all have, like, separate little jingles that play, and it's
Yeah.
like, I could mention that and you guys could read it, and if you haven't been, be like, "Oh, cool,
Mhm.
there's a jingle." But then if you have been, it's like, "Oh my God, yes, I remember, like, every station has this little tune." Um, so yeah, I think as far as imagery goes, it's more just kind of experiencing the whole vibe of being there and trying to pick up on all these little things that you maybe take for granted or don't really notice, but that when you put it all together on a page, it really helps to build a picture in the reader's mind of what this place is like.
Yeah. Right. And do you think, Japan, you had mentioned, is hard to write about without having visited. Do you think that that broadly goes for settings in general, that you have to have visited a setting in order to write it authentically, or are there certain settings that are more universal?
I think Japan specifically because it's so separate to every other
Mm,
country culturally. Um, they don't really have much immigration. They're very traditional. I think Japan in that sense is on such an extreme end of the scale, and so much of what we see in the West is super stereotypical or the tourist heavy bits, that it would be very difficult to kind of be able to write a very honest depiction of it, and all of its bad sides as well, which I think people don't really think about. Other places, I think you probably could get away with if you have experienced something similar. If I wanted to write about kind of rural Wales, I've never been to Wales. If I wanted to write about rural Wales, I've been to Scotland and could probably pull enough comparisons to make it seem realistic. But I think a huge part of our kind of duty as an author is to try and make things feel real. And I think one of the best ways to do that is always going to be going to the place that you're writing about. Unless it's completely fictional, like a pirate ship or whatever, then you can just watch Pirates of the Caribbean and have a good time. um, yeah, I think going always helps.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good for us who wanna travel. So you're
Yeah,
saying I
that's so
should
true.
travel to the location I'm writing about. Okay, let's book in the trip.
Work trip.
Exactly. No, but that specificity, like you mentioned with the jingle, like I think that really enhances a book,
Yep.
regardless of what the setting is. And do you have any other tips for writers? I mean, a lot of our listeners are writers that are trying to get published, so any other tips would be appreciated.
My advice would be to always get beta readers. I think I
Mm.
really undervalued how much of a difference it can make having someone completely external, not a friend, not family, not a colleague, someone completely random who also is a writer and a reader evaluate your work and give you feedback in a kind way. Um, I found my beta reader so Claire Darling on Twitter. I just put a tweet out and I said, I'm writing a thriller. It's based in London. Does anyone want a beta read for me? And I had like 5 or 6 people reply, and we exchanged manuscripts, and the feedback was amazing. And they noticed so many things that I wouldn't have noticed and gave me so many things to think about that I wouldn't have considered otherwise. So that would be my advice is just try and be open to bettering yourself always. And it's not necessarily criticism, it's learnings. Um, but yeah, I think my book would have been very different if I hadn't had them. Probably wouldn't have gotten a deal, to be honest. They were really, really, really helpful. Um,
Yeah.
but just make sure that your beta readers are also writers, because I think if
Mhm.
they're not, you're limited in how helpful the advice is going to be because they won't be looking at it from like a technical, structural point of view so much.
Yeah, for sure. That's really helpful.
It's great advice.
Mhm.
And just read outside your genre. Don't read. Yeah, just try everything. I think reading the same genre again and again is always going to be able to restrict you in some way, whether that's the tone you're using or the topics that you decide to explore. Like, I think just dabble.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. Now, I am interested in knowing kind of what the main takeaways from your first year as a published author are. I know you wrote a Substack on this, but what are kind of the highlights that stood out for you?
Definitely meeting readers at events. The first one especially was like I felt quite emotional because I couldn't fathom that these random people in a random city had read my book. That was just boggled the mind. I was like, I cannot believe you even know who I am. This is so weird. Um, so that was definitely a high. God, I had so many highs. I think seeing the books for the first time, like when you get posted your final finished copies, is just like, again, feels insane, especially if it's got like your publishing house logo on it. And it's just like, what is happening? I can't believe this is me. Yeah, it's just so many highs. I would say definitely the events and like all the people that I've managed to meet off the back of it. Um, and then some struggles too, definitely. I think I didn't appreciate how much networking can propel you
Mhm,
in being an author and how much value there is to networking. And as someone, I am quite introverted, but also autistic. So I think the amount of events and things can get really, really draining, and like being on all the time can feel like a lot sometimes. So I struggled a few times at a couple events doing that. And also just the first book you write because you love writing. The second one you're writing because there are expectations and deadlines that you have to meet, and it's just a completely different game. It's not the same at all.
mhm,
I have so many manuscripts, like full finished manuscripts that were edited and edited and are just in the bin, like will never see the light of day, which could feel pretty soul destroying sometimes. Um, so I think managing how you react to the fact that other people actually have expectations of you now and that they
mhm,
don't want to do what you want to do anymore is
mhm.
hard. Because with your debut, you're just doing what you want to do and having a nice time.
Yeah. It sounds like you did do networking though, you're part of that Discord with your debut year, and I really think that there is a lot of pressure and writers kind of need to take it at their own speed because a lot of us are writers because we're not extroverts because we want to sit with ourselves and put words on a page. So I think, I mean, any type of community building is commendable.
That's so true. Yeah, I think I forget the value of like an online relationship or networking
Yeah.
situation, definitely.
Yeah, especially in such a global community, especially because you have the US publisher and the UK publisher. You can't really come and meet everyone in the US or in Canada or in other areas where your book is being sold.
Unless they want to pay for my flights. Penguin,
Penguin, pay for
whoever's
her flight.
listening. Come on, Jesse,
Do
if you're
it.
listening, hook me up.
We hope they're listening. And yeah, to be honest, you had quite a year because your debut came out last spring, and you already have a book coming out, a second book coming out in a few weeks, and you're writing your third book. So definitely be easy on yourself when it comes to networking. You've been quite busy.
Thank you. When you say it like that, I'm like, shit, that's a lot of things and not that long.
It is.
Yeah, no, it is. It's nuts. Like I read an early copy of Claire Darling, so when I was going back through the timeline, I didn't really realize it didn't come out till this past spring, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, and she already has Greedy coming out." So that's that's insane. And then to also be drafting book 3, how did you like switch hats so frequently? Like how were you able to just balance all this?
I have no idea. I think as I said earlier, I'm a very quick writer. I did finish Claire Darling in my head is like 10 years ago because I finished it
Yeah.
like in 2021, 21, 22 maybe. And it's only just coming out. It only came out last year. So I had 2
Mhm.
years in between selling that book, pretty much finished, to today. So in those 2 years, I wrote a second book to complete my part of the contract, which got panned because I also wanted to write Greedy and I wrote that and they preferred it. So they bought Greedy and the second more commercial one is dead to the world. So I technically wrote 2 books in those 2 years.
Wow.
And then I finished Greedy and then as soon as I finished Greedy, I was thinking about book 3 and I had an idea that was kind of revolving around incels, and I did sample chapters, a full synopsis. Like I put so much research into it, which actually was incredibly draining and horrible.
Mm.
Um, I know it sounds weird after cannibals, but cannibalism to me was fascinating from a psychological point of view, and um, historically as well, like really interesting. Incels, it was just a completely different ball game. I spent a lot of time in like the incel forums and stuff, and I was like,
Mm.
these men are upsetting me. Like my soul feels sad that because cannibals, right? Fine. Like, are they really real? Like, I know that there are a couple of people who are into cannibalism, but like realistically, they don't really exist. Whereas the incel stuff, I was like, how do so many people in this day and age think like this and think this way? Like, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, so in the end, the incel book got panned because I think the agent felt the same way. It was just too much.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had to start again on book 3. So I'm currently like about halfway through that skeleton draft. So it seems like it's been quick because my first book's just come out, but I have had like a couple of years in between to get all these useless books out.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring up like how that research can be draining. And I mean, you have obviously really tough themes, even going back to Claire Darling with the mother-daughter relationship and whatnot. And how do you go about writing that really authentically, even in terms of having an unreliable narrator? How do you write these characters to be so genuine?
I think with Claire, it was always the idea to have her come across as she could be any of us, until she isn't. Um, so it wasn't so much thinking of writing her authentically as thinking of writing her as any woman that I would see on the street. Even her
Mm.
name, Claire, I picked specifically because it's so bland. It's sorry to anyone
Mhm.
out there called Claire. It's just like it's not, it's not an unusual rare name. It's like Emma or whatever. Like I wanted her to be very like she could be any one of us.
Mhm.
There's nothing particularly stand out about her. She does a normal job. She lives in a normal place. Um, So it was pretty easy to write her kind of authentically. And then I think that the key is always to find something that you really empathize with your character about. So with Ed, I do feel for his struggles as a foreigner living in Japan, and he obviously wants to be a good father and he wants to be a good husband, and he's completely useless at both of these things. But he does what he has that desire within him, and he's trying his best, and he wants to fix his problems, and he wants to be better. But being a foreigner abroad where you don't know anyone else is going to be really difficult. And I think that empathy that I had for him hopefully helped make him slightly more authentic and understandable in his behavior. And then the same with Hazeline, like she's a psychopath, and I've never enjoyed writing a character as much as I've enjoyed writing her. But even her, I feel sorry for her kind of childhood and her relationship history. And I think that she really loved her husband and has been kind of off the rails since he passed away. And there's just all these things that I think if you can find something that you really empathize with your characters about, it will help them come across as more real and less caricature. I would love to explore Hazeline in like some prequels, like either when she meets her husband and is going out with him, or maybe when she's like a teenager at boarding school. Just because she was fascinating. Like I would be writing lines that would be so messed up, and I'd be like, how did I even think of this? But it just worked so well for her character. Like she's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with her. And it just goes to show how important the character's backstory is, even if you're not putting the
Yeah.
backstory on the page, but
Yeah.
just like understanding that they didn't start on page one. There's a whole life leading up to that. And I noticed on Substack you were talking about how you use mood boards to create characters. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because like I'm always looking for tips just to how to create characters that are more realistic.
Yeah. So on Pinterest, I just instead of doom scrolling Instagram and stuff in the evenings, I tend to scroll through Pinterest and I just type in mood board PNGs and it will come up with everything from outfits to like accessories and random little trinket things. And I just save anything that I feel is quite interesting or unique to a board. And then when I'm creating my characters, I'll go through the board and I'll think, oh, what would this character wear? And I start with the outfit. And then I'm like, okay, what would she carry around in her bag? And then I pick a bag and then I build what would be in her bag. And then off the back of that, when I start to get this kind of visual idea of who this person is, sometimes I will be scrolling through my giant board of things I've pinned randomly. And I'll be like, oh my God, like I didn't think she smoked, but now I'm seeing this packet of cigarettes. I'm like, that totally makes sense for her. Like, yes. Or like, oh, look, like I didn't think she was very arty, but like this hand crocheted hairband is perfect. And we'll add it in, and it kind of adds all these other unexpected layers that feel quite realistic to the character. Um, so I really enjoy doing that and like learning things about my characters visually that way. And I'll do that before I start writing it all, in like the research phase, and then help build all that out into their backstory, which, as you said, it doesn't necessarily even come into the story, but it helps make them feel more real. So if she's smoking, when
Mhm.
did she start and why? That kind of thing.
That's an amazing tip. I'm going to start doing that. I'm a doom scroller, so let's throw in the Pinterest, make it
It's
productive.
so
I love that.
fun.
Yeah.
It's so
It
much
And
sounds so
fun.
fun.
I love the idea of thinking of what my characters have in their bags. That's so fun. Like,
Yes.
influencers do that all the time where they just like spill the contents of their bag and do a post about
Mhm.
it. That's so
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, it's really good. Or like, what's in their room? Like, you could build their room. Just like
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
visual stuff.
Yeah, no, that's super fun. I'm really hoping we can cover a little bit about book marketing because that is your background. Just a few questions before we let you go. I know we don't want to
Yeah.
take too much of your time, but what tips do you have for authors specifically from a marketing perspective?
I actually did a workshop on marketing for authors at Manchester Uni the other day. So,
Oh,
I've got
Oh,
cool.
notes.
amazing.
So I feel like the number one easy tip would be, if you are on social media, have a separate social media account for your personal life and to your author life. I think it's really important to distinguish yourself as the brand or the face behind the brand. And I have a completely private account on my Instagram because I don't know these people following me on my
Mhm.
work account. I don't know anything about them, where they come from. I don't want these people seeing my husband in my house and my um me going to work and what trains I get and all these things. So
Yeah.
I think having that separation is really important, both mentally and digitally. So that would be my number one tip. I think my other one would be um, have one really focused social media account rather than being on all of them and doing them all poorly.
Mm.
No one has time to be everywhere at once. So just pick one account based on who you're targeting for your books and kind of tailor it to that. And that's actually my last tip is always think about who you're writing for when you're writing the book and when you're marketing it, when you're positioning it, all of that stuff. It should all tie in. And I think it's really important to have that conversation with your editing team and your publishers really early, because you have to all be on the same page about who you're speaking to so that the marketing, the publicity, the editorial was all aligned. And I think a lot of people don't think to talk about that so early on. And then what happens is your editors go away and one of them's actually thinking about the book in a completely different way to everyone else and will produce a cover that everyone else is like, what is happening? Like, this is just completely in a different direction to what I thought we were doing. So just making sure that you're always aligned with who you're trying to speak to and how they want to be spoken to.
Honestly, those tips were amazing. So, thank you so much. This has been incredible and just so fun. And Greedy is out February 3rd, correct?
Yeah, oh my God, it's so soon.
Oh my
Woo!
Oh,
goodness, it
amazing, amazing. Well,
is.
this release will align with that, and everyone needs to read Greedy. It is
Mhm.
incredible. Like, it is
So good.
it's so dark and
Thank you so
twisty,
much.
and yeah, if you loved Claire Darling, you'll love it, and you're just gonna love everything that Callie writes, and I can't wait to see your 3rd book whenever that's out in the world.
Pray for me. Thank you
Yes,
so
good
much,
luck.
though. That's so kind. I've had so much fun talking to you.
And thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and remember to check back next Tuesday for a new episode of the Prose Pros podcast.